Story 1. Low self-esteem from thinking something is wrong with you your entire life. Kids know you are different, but nobody can quite articulate why. Things that are easy for everyone else are difficult for you, so you end up internalizing that, and as a result, you have no self-worth or faith in yourself to achieve or succeed. You always second-guess yourself. Story 2. For me, the most impactful thing is the waiting room syndrome, or waiting mode. Basically, if I have any task expected of me at some point that day, like an appointment, phone call, or getting the mail, I cannot fully relax. Oh, I have to pick someone up from the airport at 9 p.m. tonight? Great, my entire day is affected. I don't process that as 10 hours of free time before I have to leave. I process it as 10 hours of waiting, planning, thinking, and worrying about making sure I leave on time and everything goes smoothly. Even if it is something minor like feeding the fish in the evening, I don't fully unwind until all things needed of me are complete. This often leads to staying up very late because it is the only time I am free. I've been working on it. Therapy and medication have helped, but it is a struggle. It's not often realized or understood by people who don't struggle with this, and it certainly isn't helpful in maintaining a life, family, career, and so on. Story 3. The freeze. Sit down to do a task feeling totally prepared to do that task, ready to do it, knowing you absolutely must do it, and then somehow being completely and utterly unable to start the task. I was an extremely successful student in childhood and college, even with procrastinating until the very last minute and doing everything half-heartedly academically. This became a major issue as an adult in the workforce, and even more so when I started my own business. I finally sought prescription medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in my 30s, and it essentially fixed this overnight. I take a low dose of instant-release Ritalin 2 or 3 days a week, 1 or 2 times a day depending on my need. My prescriber is supportive of adjusting and tracking what I need in the use of this medication, and I appreciate that. The rest of the week, I let my brain be how it is. Usually, I like it a bit chaotic anyway. I found a psychiatric group practice that lets you make an appointment online, which was very helpful in actually getting myself to do it. I had a 1-hour assessment and follow-ups to get the dose right. I wish I'd done it sooner. I'm really happy this post has been helpful to folks. Other things that helped me immensely besides medication are keeping active, working out, spending time outside and away from screens, managing my stress to the best of my ability, and making sure that I'm getting enough sleep. Story 4. Regular fear that I'm doing something embarrassing or weird. I mask very effectively, but there's never a day when I'm interacting with people, especially new people at work, that I don't get paranoid about whether I'm acting the right way or accidentally doing something stupid. With my friends who know about my condition, the fear never happens because they'll prompt me if I'm going off the trail and we'll have a laugh about it. Story 5. Getting overly obsessive at the beginning of romantic interests or crushes. Your brain finally gets all the dopamine it wants, but likely your partner cannot keep up making you this happy all the time, so you spiral and feel miserable and anxious. They cannot leave your mind to a point where you cannot even focus on other distractions, like movies or shows or talking with friends. Being aware of this pattern helps a lot in avoiding and dealing with it, but it's still rough. Story 6. I don't know what it's called officially, but I know a lot of people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, myself included, have trouble doing anything if we have an appointment, meeting, or something to do during the day. If I have a doctor's appointment at 3 p.m., I'm quite literally waiting for it to happen all day long. What? I can't do anything in 5 hours. Don't be ridiculous. I try to make my schedule very morning heavy so I can mentally relax and focus on my daily tasks in the afternoon. Story 7. Diagnosed as a kid, but in communication, being aware of the intent of other people. There are a lot of times I can't tell when someone likes me, wants to talk to me more, is interested in me, doesn't like me, or wants something out of me. People love to be vague and assume you know what they're thinking. But without being able to read the context clues, or by missing the context clues, we miss out on a lot of potential connections or get people upset without realizing. For that reason, I love when people over-explain and explicitly say what they're thinking or feeling. Otherwise, you're playing a game of chance with me, and odds are I won't understand or know how to act. Story 8. When you're talking to me, I can look at you or I can listen to you, but I can't do both. If you want eye contact, it's going to take all my energy and focus to get my body to perform all the correct body language movements, meaning there will be nothing left to listen and process what you're saying. I can also use all my energy and focus on listening to what you're saying and put my body on autopilot, which could mean no eye contact using fidget toys or checking my phone. If I'm playing a game on my phone, I am absolutely listening to you. If I'm making eye contact, I have no idea what you just said. Story 9. While it is often overlooked, emotional regulation is one of the most critical symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. Both hyper and hypo-emotional regulation can be incredibly detrimental to all aspects of life. People can get offended because you do not act in the right way when, in reality, you do not act in any way because you cannot express large displays of emotion. This is different from psychopathy. Individuals with autism who have hypo-emotional regulation still experience emotions but have little to no outward expression. Alternatively, people may see you as immature for acting emotionally or breaking down easily due to small circumstances or problems, such as something being out of place because someone misplaced it, causing a meltdown. Both of these situations are incredibly detrimental to development for those who struggle with them. There is much more I can discuss regarding attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism spectrum disorder, but I do not want a genuinely informational post to come across as venting. Story 10. Want to do everything and end up doing nothing. Random jump of ideas in your head. So much you want to say to your friends or family, but you end up talking to yourself in your head. Story 11. Facial blindness. If I meet people in a certain environment, I do not recognize them if I see them somewhere else. Highly embarrassing and stressful. I once worked in well-being in a primary school. I would talk to students in their classroom or in my office about sensitive, personal issues. If they approached me in the yard later, I had no idea who they were or what I had spoken to them about previously. I was in a constant state of panic. Story 12. I have to be present in pretty much every moment. Decision fatigue is immense. Walking doesn't work right unless I'm concentrating. Moving, I have to be aware of surroundings or constantly bump into things. I sometimes wonder if I am actually a ghost who is used to just following a thought rather than a hallway. Timing, do I do the thing now? Or are the vibes telling me not to do it now because something magical will happen instead? The more I push for an outcome or resolution, the harder it pushes back. Watching people lie to others and then being surprised that I know they are lying to me because they make the same face and change their tone in the same pattern. Story 13. Can I pick two? 1. Eye contact problems. It drives me up a wall, but I cannot for the life of me maintain solid eye contact and still keep up with the conversation. So much energy and attention is dedicated to making sure I do the eye contact thing right that I can't visualize what the person is telling me. I'm sure it's very awkward for the other person. It definitely is for me. And I think people think that I'm not paying attention. If I'm looking away at seemingly nothing, then I'm paying very close attention. 2, it's not really been studied academically, but I am a pretty strong believer in the link between autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and limerence. It's fairly easy for me to get infatuated with someone, especially if they are a source of dopamine. Maybe they are really fun or very interesting and stimulating mentally, or even simply very attractive. In any case, the issue is how obsessed I become with the other person, put them on a pedestal, become awkward around them, view them as above or better than me. It's not only draining, but it's very unhealthy mentally and can even lead to physically unhealthy behaviors, such as losing sleep, resorting to substances when I can't be around them, over or under eating. I would never do anything to upset or harm or anything negative to my source of limerence, but that also means I can't stick up for myself and do whatever they want. That kind of thing. It just sucks. Story 14. A common thing with autism that most people don't know about is issues with proprioception. I've been diagnosed with autism for nearly 14 years and only found out about this 2 or 3 years ago. Proprioception is the sense of where your own body is. That's why you don't have to stare at your feet every time you walk up the stairs. Autistic people often have reduced proprioception. Not zero proprioception, just reduced. This explains the clumsiness. I'm always getting random scratches and bruises and having no idea where they came from, but also why stimming is satisfying. You're not getting as much input from the rest of your body, So things like jigging your leg or tapping your fingers can help to make up for it. It's not the only reason for either of those symptoms, but it's a common reason. Story 15. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has a little-known rejection sensitivity, a strong negative reaction to rejection or criticism. I've been suicidal many times from the mildest spat with my wife or some bad feedback from my boss. The specialist my psychiatrist sent me to believes that that's the cause of my psychotic episodes, given their timing and nature, but as far as I know, no one's published evidence of that. Story 16. The inability to form habits and having to expend copious amounts of mental energy to handle the minutiae of daily living. They say if you do a thing every day for a certain number of days, it becomes a habit. That doesn't work for people with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I am 38 years old and need a reminder every day of my life to brush my teeth, or I simply won't. Sure, I might remember to do it for a few days, maybe even a month. But eventually, I'll forget to do it enough times in a row that I'll just stop altogether, and I might not realize it for 6 months. Think about all the little things like this you do habitually throughout the day. Taking your medication, going to bed or work at set times, exercising, putting your keys and phone in the usual spot, showering, feeding yourself. Something like 40% of everything you do in a day is habitual. You don't think about it. You just do it. Now imagine instead that you need to be paying attention to all of these tasks 100% of the time to make sure you're doing them and doing them correctly. It's exhausting, and the consequences of inevitably messing up run the gamut from embarrassing slip-up to life-altering catastrophe. There are techniques for coping with this, but it's something you have to really work on, and unless you were diagnosed earlier in life, no one taught you the coping techniques. You didn't even realize you needed them. A lot of us spend decades drowning in nonsense, wondering if we're just stupid. And since you don't form habits, you can always lapse back into a state of just not doing it again. Story 17. Horrific, unwanted thoughts that come unbidden. I thought I was going crazy for years until I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The therapist explained that was one of the symptoms. Story 18. The worst thing is really being very good at some things, so people expect a lot from you. I hate knowing that messing up disappoints them since they feel I can do so much better. Story 19. Meltdowns. Counting it as high functioning because I would get home from school, later work, and just go absolutely mental, screaming, crying, hitting myself after having to mask all day. I think meltdowns are under-discussed because it's such an unflattering symptom, but a surprising number of people who seem high-functioning have them. Story 20. Trying to be normal while intensely focusing on things. One day, you stumble across a piece of media, and now you can't stop thinking about it. But nobody around you knows the thing that currently sits first and foremost in your brain, so you just walk around trying not to talk about something that means so much to you at the moment. I would be very loud about my interests when I was younger, but nowadays, I usually wait for the intense focus to pass so that I can have an easier time blending in. It's especially embarrassing when the thing you're intensely focusing on is not that good, so you can't recommend it to people. Story 21. The masking. You can't have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism spectrum disorder, you don't act like it at all. Yeah, and do you know how difficult that is to do all the time and how exhausting it is? Story 22. Gaslighting yourself. I am not literally dying, so I can do this. You slow spiral into burnout. Always feeling like your successes hang by a thread because sooner or later all the neurotypicals will see me for the dysfunctional freak I am. You can funnel that into success, but at an ever-increasing cost. Story 23. Not being able to do your favorite hobbies. It's not losing interest in your hobbies, but more that you just can't will yourself to do them, even though you really want to. It is horrible and soul-crushing. Story 24. Diagnosed at 32, female. Pattern recognition and things linked to it. I can't watch movies or read books with stereotypical plots or poorly written ones because I know how they will end, and it annoys me. I can enjoy the very random ones. Currently watching Malcolm in the Middle, and it's so random it's perfect. At the same time, this applies to people as well. I can't read social cues well, but I can read people, and within a very short period of time, I kind of know where I stand with them. Are you trying to be fake nice? Not with me. I know how to act, what to talk about, and how to be likable. This leads to the social chameleon personality as well as a very quick creep detector. It also leads to never actually knowing who the real me actually is. And then it makes me extra exhausted, and after socializing, I don't get out of bed for days.